Hello everyone, it's me from Skeletorama again. Welcome back to my channel. How is everybody? So Happy New Year to you. It's New Year's Day and I'm already knocking things over. Great. So I don't know when the video will be up, but I am doing this on New Year's Day at least, so I'm trying. So I figured it was time we got back to working on some stuff for the Alice project. So hopefully my lighting will be a little bit improved. Probably not, who knows. But anyways, we're going to revisit a really cool video, and when I went to go back and look for it, it's 4 years old, and Ara made it, I think, as her 1,000 subscriber giveaway, which is mind-blowing now because she's got a couple more than that. But this was the first downloaded pattern she made available for free to her subscribers and to people who watch her channel. And it's a really solid, great, easy to make chair. My legs look like crap on this chair, but the chair looks great. And this was the first try at doing it too. So followed her instructions to the letter. It was great. So we need to make some chairs, I think, for Alice and her friends who've been ignored. Bring our table back in. So as you can see, Ara again measures things correctly and I don't, and there you go. So this chair, while it looks kind of okay, it's a little out of place, right? So it needs to be made just a little bit larger and all that. So that's what we're going to do, I think, today. So what I did is I went back to the video and I picked up the template for the chair itself. And that will make a chair this size, but I need to make it slightly larger. So I had to then pull it into Photoshop and I had to change a few things. So as you can see, I had to make it a little bit larger. It's probably 25% larger, which means I am way out of scale with my table, which is going to be great. So I have the new templates here. I basically had to cut and paste, and don't ask about my printer, just don't. We're not speaking right now. But anyways, so that's this right here. So we are going to have a few things for this. And I'll scoot this little chair over here. Okay, so we're going to need some things, right? So here it says thick paper, and what she says is not to use cardstock, because cardstock isn't quite thick enough generally for it. So what I'm going to use is basically a thin chipboard, right? So it's thin enough that it will curve. With chipboard as well, the way you place it on here, you've got the side that will curve with the grain. You got the side where it's harder to curve along the grain, so that can help you if you need to add stiffness to things. But this should hopefully be enough to put these on. If not, I do have more of this. So we got that. And then the rest of the pieces are made out of foam board, which I have here. So I've got some, what's about 1/8 of an inch? I'm not even gonna guess, let's just not do that. But regular old foam core, like when you go to the store and get it, that thickness, right? So we got foam core. And we will also need some padding. So this is quilt batting. When you're doing stuff like this with miniatures, you want to use this type of quilt batting. Do not use the polyester thick crap. I've stopped even using it for quilts because it's just maddening to try to actually use, as I found out when I was working on some quilts not too long ago. So there's that. And then we're going to need some fabric to cover the chair, right? So the cool thing with the chairs for Alice in Wonderland is they're all different. They're all mismatched. They're all like, they don't look like they belong together with the table, but they all work kind of thing. So you can do whatever the hell you want with the fabric, right? So I was trying to think, I do have more Panne velvet. These chairs cover really well in Panne velvet because it stretches, so you can get those curves really nice. I may do another one because on the end I want this type of chair on each end of the table, because in the movie that's kind of how it was, right? You had the big ornate chair, and then more of your classic just high back chairs on the other sides, and they're a hell of a lot easier to make. So there's that. So we're gonna do at least 2 of these, so I probably will do at least one in Panne velvet. But I was looking through my fabric and I couldn't find anything I really liked that was small enough scale that wouldn't look weird. And I went, wait a minute, I have a whole category of fabric that I use for junk journals that I didn't even think about. So let me grab that. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, as it looms into view. There's no way I can get this whole thing into view, but this is Sari fabric, right? Sari fabric has tons of beautiful jewel tones, and it's got shiny and sparkly. Now, unfortunately, it's usually also very sheer. So if you wanted to, you could use this for it, but you would really have to cover it in like another white cotton muslin type fabric first. So this has something to kind of bounce off of. We're not going to go for that. You know, I've got the little strips of stuff here. What we're going to go is for what I have in the bottom part. So there are lots of the sheer fabrics again in here. I just love these things. They're so pretty. There's lots of sheer fabric, but when you get down into this stuff, I believe it's called lurex. This is where you start getting into where we'll have the width to do what we need to do, and it's very opaque. It's very shiny and it's very pretty. So now what I'm gonna have to do is dig through here and see what I can find that will work on the chair. Since I'm gonna need a decent amount of fabric to do that, I'm gonna go ahead and bring my pattern in here just so I can hold them up, because like this is very pretty. This is going to work beautifully for like, you know, one of the chairs with just the pad, you know, on it or whatever. I'm sure there's a name for it. I don't know what it is though. But anyway, this would definitely not work for this because see, it's just way too small and not nearly enough to cover the whole thing. So, this one might work. And we've got that one there. I'm not sure if that's too sheer. That might be too sheer, but we'll see. Some more. I think it's off of that same piece there. I don't know if we could get away with that one. Okay, so far this looks like pretty much kind of all we have to choose from. Sadly, most of the larger pieces I have are sheer because the more decorative embroidered fabrics at this size are a lot more expensive. So there's that. Okay, so this one is really cool, but it does have kind of a pattern. So I don't think that would work because to be able to get that pattern to look correct, it's just gonna be hellish. So we'll just put this one back. Okay, so that leaves us with this one, which is basically the same as this one, which would look really awesome, especially if it was coming up here like this, you know, on the paper pattern here. You know, it could come up on the chair like that. So we'll see, because I'd really like to use this one. Otherwise, the two truly opaque ones that I have are going to be this kind of purple, which the pattern's really large, but it may work. Be able to tell once we have it kind of more put together and can hold the fabric up to it. But this has a variety of patterns and scales and things so that different parts of the chair can look different if we want it to. And then best bet for a large chair would be this one here. So here's the front of this one. And this is a nice color. It's got a fairly large scale fabric pattern, but it's not too bad. We can work with it. Can have the seat of the chair be maybe this part or this part. That's about it, would fit right on there. So this might be the one. But before we can do any of that, we're going to need to cut our patterns out. Let's get this out of the way here. So the first step, of course, is you have these patterns. The paper one you can set aside completely for a while, but you do need the ones for the foam board. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off camera. I'm going to cut these out, and I will be back to you, and then we'll transfer them onto the foam core, and I'll show you where to go from there. Okay, so I got everything cut out here. And so now what we're going to need to do is we are going to need to transfer this to the foam board. And I can't find my foam board. Oh. It's black, so it blends in with my desk. Wow, all right. So the easiest way to do this here is to trace these. So I'm going to try a white water-soluble marking pencil. It's actually done for quilting. And let's see how this does. If this doesn't work, I'm going to have to use regular pencil. Oh yeah, not bad. Okay, so I'll put on fast forward. I'm going to trace around all these pieces on here. There we go. So we have them all traced out. So now I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to cut them out, except I'm going to grab the one with the new blade. Okay. You can tell it's fairly new because I haven't broken the tip off of it yet. So let's make this a little bit smaller so it's a little bit easier to deal with. I'll start cutting these out. Now it's really important to keep your blade straight up and down so you don't end up mitering the edges of your foam core, which is very easy to do, which I will probably do. So just know that's going to happen, but I do try to keep it straight up and down. So yeah, that's what they mean by mitering it. So it is mitered a bit, but oh well, we'll deal with it. I am not the best at that. Okay, so here we have it. Now, did I mess these up a little bit? Yeah, of course I did. I always do. I may be able to fix that one because at least I went out in that direction. So I can kind of even this up a little bit. But it is really hard to keep that X-Acto knife straight up and down, I'll tell you what. Never been terribly good at that. Okay, so I have these about as good as they're gonna get. So now we have two, these are both D pieces because you're going to do a double thickness basically of it. Let's see, I'm going to turn mine this way because I mitered them in opposite directions, so maybe I can even them out. Oh Lord. Okay. Yeah. I did a great job. Okay, nope, I have to even that out. I can't with that. Okay, that's better. I'm gonna do that with the rest of these. This means my seat's gonna be a little smaller. That's okay, it goes under it. Okay, there we go, that's a little bit better. Oh, so how bad did I miter them? Yes, I did. Yeah, I just can't be trusted with this kind of stuff. All right, but anyways, even though I can't do these straight up and down very well, I didn't with this either. So you know what, it's okay. It will be okay because we have batting and it will save us. All right, so we're gonna start gluing some stuff together. So now with this, the glue you choose does make kind of a difference. You can use hot glue with it. You can use a lot of things. Normally, my go-to for stuff is this. Do not use this with foam because this is acetone based. And if you remember back when we made the base for the table, one of the ways I contoured that foam was with acetone, right? So what it's gonna do is it's gonna melt your foam. So just don't use that. You can use it with the fabric after the batting is on because then this is protected, but you really don't want to use it straight with this. So I'm just going to use my regular everyday Scotch tacky glue. It holds really strong. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the back and we're going to glue these side pieces to it. And this is where this needs to be fairly straight. But you know what? Let's try this. Let's try this since I am just not to be trusted. Maybe if I hold this straight and sand it, that'll straighten it out. Because I need to get these flat to this. So hey, that actually helped a bit. Cool, so yeah, I guess you can sand it, neat. All right, so that's what we're gonna do here. We are going to take this and we're gonna put glue on the edge. Now, since this is tacky glue versus hot glue, it is going to need to dry for a few minutes before we move on. So what I'll do is I will glue these together. You want to match the bottom part up. You want to match your angle up so this is nice and flat in the back. And then don't worry so much about where these meet because we can kind of cut that down a bit if it's looking weird to you. But it's supposed to be slightly different. It's not supposed to smoothly flow, over it. And again, here's where 1, 2, 3 blocks come in handy because we can push this up against it and we know it's going to keep it at a nice angle. Because these are going to go underneath. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put these two together first. But when I do that, I am going to sit it down here at the bottom as well so I can make sure that it's going to align correctly with everything else. This dry for a bit before we start trying to put a bunch of batting and stuff on there. So I'll be back with you in just a few minutes. Okay, so here we are. It has had time to dry overnight. I went ahead and put a little bit of extra glue kind of in here as a bit of a space filler because there was some gapping because my cutting is crap. So now we have our chair base. So first thing we're going to do before we expend all this effort and all this stuff is we're going to hold it next to the freaking table. Okay, let's do that, shall we? So we have our table here and we have our chair here. So as you can see, this kind of fits the scale of the table better. And if you think about it, in the original movie and everything, it was a big oversized chair because she sits like just right here in it. She's real small in it. So I'm going with that, right? Whatever. But you can see there's a pretty good size difference between these two. So it definitely looks a lot more in keeping with this particular table. So I'm very happy with that. This is also going to be what we use to decide the chair legs on it, which I haven't quite figured that one out yet. So we'll get there when we get there. Oh yeah, me and my planning. So, okay, so now what we need to do is we need to start putting some batting on this. And you do want to do it in kind of a specific order. So I've got my batting here. So you're going to do the sides first, all the way down. And this is the part where, you can sand it to make it a little more even. I might do that because, I mean, in terms of even, this is kind of ridiculous. Seriously. But, so I'm going to sand this down. You can like fill it if you want to. I'm not so worried about filling it because this will do that. But this side here, it is kind of pooched out a little bit here. So I do need to sand that down. But, so I'm going to do that real quick and then we're going to start putting this on there. as you can see, that's quite a bit better. It's not sticking out by a good, you know, 1/8 of an inch anymore, so it's not going to make the fabric and stuff stick out strange. So in order to attach this to this, normally again I would use Beacon or Fabri-Tac or whatnot, but I don't want this next to the foam because chances are it will melt the foam. We don't want that. So we are going to use the regular PVA glue. So this is gonna take a minute to dry and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes what'll happen too, just know when you use tacky glue and you go to put it on here, it won't stick because it's absorbed into your fabric. You may have to put a little bit extra on, but it really is the best one. So that's what we're gonna do now. So I've put it on here. I'm going to let it set up a little bit to make sure it holds really well. And then we're going to go through and we're going to trim all of this out, but I don't want it to shift while I'm trimming it off. So we're just going to kind of let this sit for a few minutes and I'll be right back with you. Okay, that should be good enough. So we're just going to trim around this. And this you want to trim right to the edge. You don't want any hangover because we're going to put some stuff over the front of it too. And when you get into this little corner, take your time, go the other way if you need to. Because the neater you make everything underneath it, of course, the neater your whole piece is going to be, right? Okay, so now we have it on the sides and the side, and we're going to do the back now. And you do it this way so that the back will also go to the edge of this stuff here, so you don't have any kind of a gap. Like with the other one, we're going to cut all the way around the edges. This one will be a little easier because it's a lot more straight edges, but it seems to be grabbing it pretty good already. So okay, ta-da! So now it's covering that up very nice, and see, you can't see my jacked up edges much, a little bit right there, but it kind of unifies everything. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cover this part here first, and I'm going to cut some strips because this is about 1/4 of an inch wide, right? Yeah. So I'm going to cut some strips and we're going to cover this part first, then we'll do a long strip to here, long strip here, and a long strip here. Do yourself a favor when you're doing this part, make sure you've got at least one straight edge that you can put right along here, because you do not want to try to cut that in there. You just don't. And then one of the trickier parts for me is, of course, going to be able to cut the little strips for this. But what I've done is I've kind of held the fabric against it to go, okay, I need it to be at least yay long, gave myself lots of room. And then we're going to switch from smaller scissors to larger scissors because you don't have to cut it as many times. And so with this, I'm going to do it a little bit over 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to go as straight as I can, which is, yeah, not terribly straight, but you know. See, and this is going to go over it like this. So I need 2 of those, and then 1 for the top as well while I'm at it. What this does is it really kind of unifies everything and levels it out so you don't have any, you know, you don't want your fabric to follow every line of your foam core because that would look hideous. And then we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna start here at the bottom. You don't wanna overlap these because you don't want bulk, but I'm gonna start here at the bottom, and then we're gonna follow this line and line it up with the inside edge. So that way, whatever we need to trim will be on the outside. And again, it's a lot easier to trim on the outside. And so this one you do have to be fairly patient with. And you're gonna put your glue on here. And as you put your batting on there, you're just gonna kind of hold it. You're gonna wait to trim it for sure until it's fairly dry. So we're gonna go ahead and do that part. I'm gonna do both sides of this. And so on this, I am gonna just do these edges real quick so I can get the back piece on so it will start drying also. And then I can do any, final trimming to it, of course, on this back part when everybody's dry. So this one, I'm just gonna go ahead and measure this out and cut it to the length that I need it, because I want it to go between these two but not overlap it. Okay, so there we are for now. I'm gonna let this sit here and dry for a few minutes, and then I will trim these outside edges here and here and here, and then I will come back to you. All right, so we have our chair and it is covered now, and it's been trimmed down so everything's nice and even. So now normally this is the part where you start putting the fabric on, but we're gonna do the next step after that first, and I'll tell you why. Because we're gonna really wanna see if that sheer fabric will work with it before we start covering anything, and or we're gonna need to kind of see where we want the placement of stuff, because the patterns are really ornate, so we don't wanna just slap it on there, right? So the next step is gonna be this smaller piece. This is the piece that's gonna be your seat cushion. So we'll be covering this with some batting also. And we will be cutting these out of the thin chipboard, and then we're gonna cover those with batting as well. So that's what we're gonna do. So we're just gonna take this and we're gonna put it on here and we're gonna trace around it. Easy peasy. Okay, so these are all traced out now, and if you notice I put an F on the front, and I'm sure you're thinking, no, this was piece F. Well, it's F for front because you're only going to cover one side, and you want to make sure that you cover each side, and these are facing opposite directions, so you don't want to find out that you've covered this side, and if you flipped it over, covered the other side, and you can only put it on one, right? So went ahead and did that, and then I left myself a gap here, because to cover these parts here, we're going to need a 1/4 inch strip. So once I cut these out, I'm going to grab my paper trimmer. I'm going to do 1/4 inch strips here and here. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do that first because I know I'll mess that up. Okay, so set this here, this out to 1/4 inch. That is not really, it's not 1/4 inch, well, we'll find out. It says it is. It probably knows better than me. Well, looky there, it is. Okay, cool, whatever. Okay, and then of course make sure these are going to be long enough, which they should be. Yes, okay, perfect. So now I will just cut these out. Okay, so here we have our pieces, and again, this is what I was talking about. If I had jumbled them up and accidentally covered the same side, you know, with it facing the same direction, when I go to put it in here, it's not going to work out for me, right? But here, if we follow, we've got the F there. We've got the F there, so we know we're going to put it on our correct surface, right? We're going to move that in case I end up thinking I have to cover that, and I don't. Okay, same with this here. So we're going to do a couple things just slightly different with these. So with this one here, this is our seat. It's going to fit in here. So we only need to cover the top surface and the leading edge of it, because this back part's going to stick against there. These are going to stick against here. You're not going to see any of that, but you are going to see these. Okay, so we will get our stuff out here. You know, I'm going to go ahead and start with my leading edge just to make my life a little bit easier. So we have this covered like so, but when you look at chairs, they generally are, see here how it kind of poofs up a bit and poofs up a bit. So we're going to add a couple extra layers to this piece and this back piece to kind of simulate that. And so you basically just cut another piece of your batting, and I usually will end up doing 3 graduated pieces. So there's one there, and then we'll do another one right about here, and it'll go on top of here. So when you cover it, it kind of goes over. It makes it look more like a comfy seat cushion that you're going to sit down on, right? And so for that, you're just going to take a little bit of glue, and then you're going to put it on the back of this, and you're going to stick it to this, and then try not to move it, because what this will do a lot of times is each side of it will wick the glue away and leave you none in the middle to actually put anything together. It's really annoying. But if you just leave it and sit it on there and don't mess with it, you'll be good. Okay, so we'll sit this off the side. So we're going to do the same for these. We're going to cover our front side and our front side of this, trim around it, and then I'll add some more graduated sizes of it when we get to that part. All right, so we've got all these covered, so we can sit these up here too. Now this one here, let's grab our pattern back out again, if I can find which one it is. Thick paper, there we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut another piece, and we're just going to use this so we can kind of get the general shape of it. And we're only going to go up about here because the rest of it's going to be behind the cushion and everything. So it's really no point in doing that. Okay, and then we're going to do it, we're going to go in a little bit with it. We're going to leave that arch up there though. Okay, so we got this piece right about here, which is a pretty good size. And then this one, go in about yay much. And then we'll cut a little bit off of this side. And then this one will go kind of right here. And that's going to give us, again, the kind of poofiness that makes it look like a really comfy chair. And as the other one, you just put some glue on here. And stick it on this one, and then we'll let these kind of set up for a little bit. These pieces here you do not want to cover with batting, because these are going to be kind of more of an edging sort of a thing. Okay, so there we go. So I'll be back with you guys in just a few minutes. All right, so it should come as no surprise that, of course, I drug this out way too long and it's going to have to be 2 videos. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here, and then we'll start up again for part 2. So we'll see you there. Bien, bye.